Hello everyone, it's Jazz, it's the West Ham Minds channel. It's a special show. I kind of do these now and again when I really see something interesting to talk about, really, which again isn't directly linked with a game or what's going on within a typical current week. And it's the interview. There's an interview that Mark Warburton has done on the YouTube channel, and I'll put the link in the description so you guys can kind of watch it. The name of the channel is No Tippy Tappy Football, and it's kind of Tim Sherwood. There's a lady presenter in the middle orchestrating everything, and then you've got Mark Warburton, who was West Ham's number 2 for 1 year up to June, 2023 is when he left. So 1 year he was with West Ham as our number 2, working alongside David Moyes. And hands up again, I sometimes have a problem judging a person by its cover, things like that, right? So I'm at fault for that. And I was one of those who used to mock Mark Warburton because just the way he looked, he didn't look as a very interesting character. He didn't look as though he knew a lot about football. He didn't look very commanding. He didn't look like someone that could manage a club like West Ham or had any knowledge. And hands up, I was one of those people until I saw this interview. And after seeing the interview, I've got a completely different sort of picture of the guy and different respect levels for the guy, really. So if we go right back to the beginning, he mentions that I mean, I work in treasury and I work in banking myself. So he was a trader for 25 years in the city of London, doing largely currency trades like the Japanese yen. So again, very, very good with numbers, very, very intelligent, works well under pressure. So carved out herself a career as a trader, which is very hard to do. And he was very, very successful at it. And when you are very, very successful at that level, you more or less earn money nearly what the players do. So then towards, 10, 15, 20 years ago, he ended up in coaching. He took his badges alongside people like Ray Wilkins and one or two other famous retired people that were doing it, Adrian Heath at Everton, people like that. And then obviously he worked at a lower level outside the Premiership before you joined West Ham, really. And he gave up a very well-paid job in London in banking, like I mentioned, to go into football. And kind of that was kind of his background, really. And how he met David Moyes was that he's got a holiday home in Florida, same as David Moyes, and the families began to kind of know each other. The kids played with each other, and a friendship formed, played golf together. And then, with David Moyes, he's been losing backroom team staff and coaches like Nevin and Irvine and Stuart Pearce. They don't hang around long, and David Moyes offered him the number 2 position. And obviously he accepted. He wanted experience of the Premiership, see how a really, really big club is run. And his expertise, like I said, Mark Warburton, is kind of understanding finance, working with numbers. He's worked at Sporting Lisbon in their academy. He's worked at number 2 as a coach, that kind of thing, really. So he's done everything apart from managing a big club. So he's always been in the background, but a very intelligent figure, a very clever figure who analyses things really, really well. And out of this interview, what I like about him is that he's quite honest, he's quite down to earth, very clever, and he's been brave in coming out and speaking about a few things, really, which is what can't be said about Stuart Pearce, Alan Irvine and Nevin. They never said a Scooby. They've left the club. You're not going to hear nothing about why did they leave, what was the experience like working with David Moyes, nothing. But this guy has done a number of interviews and then leading up to this one, and I watched it last night and I thought it was very, very interesting. He's got a lot of respect for David Moyes, and before I go into it, he did summarise and mention he left West Ham. There's a few things he didn't agree with, and he didn't want it ruining the relationship he had with David Moyes, so he just left. He doesn't need the hassle. He doesn't need the money. He really wants to earn money where he can provide really valuable input. So great guy to have. He doesn't want to just earn the money and not do anything, because he could have easily stayed there, twiddle his thumbs, and not really have any input into anything. And then he's a proper bloke, hard worker, and didn't want to do it, and he left, right? And obviously in an interview he tried to obviously say that I don't want to say anything that upsets David Moyes or the club, so he wanted to keep it fairly kind of political. But I think the interviewer, the lady, did quite well to get one or two things out of him. And when you're always honest and you're always trying to hide something, something will come out that gives you an idea of what really is going on at West Ham. And we're all dying to find out what is going on at West Ham. I'm guessing it's to do with Sullivan, right? That he wants to run the show still. He still wants to have an influence in buying players. He's got Tim Stuyton, who wants to run in another different direction. He's got David Moyes, wants to run in another different direction. And I think that cloud is apparent around the club. You can try to conceal it as much as you like, but I just think it's there. It's there, and it's kind of an issue, really. So the first thing I want to tackle is I've got a lot of respect for him now, and I think he's clever. He's very good as a number 2 backroom team guy. Got a lot of skill on the finance side. He understands numbers and things like that. So a lot of clubs love people like that as well, if you got that skill set. And he's not in it for the money. He's made a lot of money through banking. He's there for the love of football. And I think it's heads up to him that he, out of his own choice, he left after exactly 1 calendar year. June 2022, June 2023, West Ham, win a trophy. And he goes, he didn't need to, right? And one of the things, obviously, Tim Sherwood's a Spurs man, Spurs captain, Spurs manager, and Mark Warburton admitted he's a Tottenham fan. He didn't want to tell anyone, but he kind of said it came out. And him and Tim Sherwood both agreed that they've got friends who are West Ham fans, and having worked at West Ham and that kind of thing, have spoken. They all agree West Ham's a huge club, bigger than a lot of people realise outside West Ham, really. So that was nice to hear from them, really. And then they started asking questions about that Tim Stuyton has come in and how does that work with David Moyes and that kind of thing. And he let out that Moyes would be angry. He wouldn't be happy about that because he likes control from the top to the bottom. He's one of those old school managers that are still left in the game, right? But then Mark understood, and I understand as well, that the future is the sporting director kind of platform where you got a sporting director, very powerful, very clever, runs all of the scouting team underneath him, all the transfer dealings from contract negotiations on the finance side to completion, to sourcing, scouting, everything will go through the sporting director. He'll work closely with the board, with the transfer panel, with all the blessings of the owner. So the owner will not really interfere that much in terms of what we need. That'll be all done by Tim. But then he would obviously need approval from like a board of directors panel to make, before the signings come through, really. And then the manager would be like the Brighton Brentford model, who are kind of pure coaches. I think Watford got that model. So the manager would be young, he would be a coach, and he would know he would be given a good set of players, and then it'd be more or less, hopefully, his idea of how he wants to play. Hopefully that'll go hand in hand with what the club want to play. Club want to play good football. They'll hire a coach with a record of playing good football. They'll give him players who play good football, and away we go in the same, and he doesn't interfere much with transfers. Clear-cut policy. Everyone knows their roles. There's no kind of stepping on each other's feet. Very, very clear, unlike what's happening now at West Ham. And then obviously Mark Warburton mentioned that it's the age thing where Tim Stuyton is a lot younger than Moyes, and Moyes ain't going to listen to him, right? It's got to be the other way around. So Tim Stuyton hires the new manager. It'll be Tim's age, in and around his age, not the gap David Moyes has got. And then he gave an idea that Moyes would be angry in that kind of setup. And I love this question from Tim Sherwood, who said, well, actually, before I go into that, they kind of tried to press Warburton, why did you leave? And he mentioned the kind of style of play. He kind of said, he goes, Moyes has got his way of playing that works for him. It's solid, it's defensive, it's all those things that we know. And he said, that's not quite me. And I want to give an input. And if my input ain't going anywhere, or I can't change anything, then I don't want to be there. So that tells me that Warburton wanted to play or suggest a different way of playing, or certainly a second different way of playing, depending on the fixtures. Just be flexible. But what we find with Moyes, one formation, one way of playing, forcing skillful players to defend and bore the pants off the fans, no in-game management, no subs, fuck all, nothing on the bench. Doesn't even work with the people on the bench or kind of generally on the squad overall. Just 11, no rotation, same players, whether you're in form, out form, where you're tired, not tired, same shit. And that's kind of what Warburton was saying. Not in the exact words I mentioned, because he wouldn't do that. He does want to upset David Moyes. He's got respect for David Moyes. He's got respect for West Ham. But in not so many words, you can feel what you're saying. He was frustrated. He's a proud man. He wants to provide valuable input that makes a difference to his employer like West Ham, and he wasn't given that chance. And hands up, I used to just laugh at him, and that's probably not nice for me either. I think he's got a lot of good skill sets, and he could bring to another club, and he wants to stay in management. He wants to be the number one in time. So respect on that, really. So that was very interesting for me. And then Tim Sherwood said, yeah, you're right, David Moyes plays this type of football. It doesn't sit well with West Ham. He understood the history of the club. And then a great question from Tim Sherwood at Warburton was like, why have you got players like Paqueta and Kudos if you're playing a certain way? And then Warburton didn't know what to say. And he more or less kind of said that they're not kind of David Moyes' signings, and also that Tim Stuyton, when someone like Tim Stuyton is hired, he's there to run the show in terms of transfer. So that was a great hint. So a hint that Kudos and Paqueta are not David Moyes signings. They're not David Moyes type of players. They're just too skillful, which is I was used to think. And then also saying that if Tim Stuyton comes into a club, he's there to run the show. This is the future. And that David Moyes would be angry with this kind of setup. So that gives you a lot of things of what's going on. And then obviously from other kind of outlets, I think what's going to happen looks like, unless something really bad happens in the form, is that he's going to be allowed to kind of just walk away when his contract ends, like resigns. So the club want to respect him and just not sack him, but allow him to walk away, which, again, just do what's right for your club. Be a bit ruthless. That's the way I'll think, fuck it, give him a couple of million. If the manager you want is available, just go for it now. The more time you give him, the better. But that's just not the way the club operates. It's slow. It's kind of reactive. Like I said, it's lethargic. And these are really, really exciting things that I found out, and it gives you insight what's happening at a club. So I think this tells me that David Moyes will walk away from this role. He doesn't want to really work with a director of football. It doesn't work. It's a different generation, different set of ideas. We don't want no coach worth any monetary value, any brains or anything. They don't want to play football like this. No one wants to watch this football. No one would want to do it. That's why the coaches have all gone. And it's nice that Warburton's been brave enough to face a few of the cameras and things like that, really. So I think Moyes is going to go. Tim Stuyton hopefully will stay with his brother, and he'll be the real strong. It'll be like the Ajax model. Go out there, search for tomorrow's stars, see if we can make a profit on them, or they can stay if we do really, really well. And then the manager will be a young manager, exciting manager, and he'll be like a coach. He will not be headstrong or interfere in transfers too much like David Moyes. Obviously, there'll be discussions on how we're playing and what do you want, and then they'll seek out the players, and then he has to pick one perhaps, or they do it together. It won't be a thing of David Moyes saying, I decide everything, because Warburton said that. In one way, Warburton said that Moyes still has the final say in a lot of things. But I don't think that's true. And I think some signings have, like Danny Ings, that looks like a Sullivan signing to me. So again, running in a different direction. But once David Moyes leaves, Sullivan, which I don't think, Sullivan has to just let go. But that's an issue again. So I think until Sullivan really, really leaves the club, the issue with the ground, that the mental block fans have got with Sullivan forcing us to move from Upton Park will remain. So we won't fully kind of, get away from that and really expand and do well until Sullivan's gone. But it'll be step by step. He's getting older. He can't stay forever. Hopefully that'll change. But it looks like Tim Stuyton will be given, the full set of keys. Because there's reports that he's frustrated, especially in January. Sullivan's frustrated. Why didn't we get a striker in? Why didn't we get another winger in? It's obvious what's happened. They're all clashing with each other. And it's good that from this interview, that's kind of what I got, really. So I thought I'd share this with you guys. It's very, very interesting. It's a good, honest interview. obviously he can't say as much as he wants, but he gave me enough hint to work out what he was trying to say. To summarize, he was frustrated. He couldn't provide any input. He wanted to change things slightly, couldn't. Doesn't agree with the way Moyes is set up and does things. Definitely agrees that Tim Slayton, he comes in, he wants control, and he agrees David Moyes will be angry with that setup, really. But quite out kudos, not really Moyes' players, really. So that's the kind of things I'm picking up from that. Apart from that, I've been really, really busy past couple of days, and I was away on holiday for a week. So I'm sorry I've not been able to do videos. I'm just so busy, and I'm on my own in this channel. I don't really have another partner like some other channels do, really. It's just me, and then if I'm busy, I just can't get out there. But again, I'll try to bring you more and more different shows and programs as much as I can, really. So that's it from me. You guys have a lovely, lovely evening, and take care. Come on, you irons.